the first thing that you should be able to locate and identify is that structure. Pink, which is actually oval in shape, however, that structure is already distorted during the preparation of the tissue. And so there are a lot of areas which are showing us a folding of its tissue. However, okay, we can still appreciate the oval configuration of that structure, which is responsible for focusing the light which enters the eyeball. How do you call that structure? Which is also involved in accommodation of light. Okay, the lens. Now, if you have already located the lens, okay, anterior to the lens is the anterior covering of the eye, which is called the cornea. Very good. The tissues of the cornea are grouped into 5 layers. So, okay, that is the cornea. We will begin from the outermost. What type of epithelium is lining the outer surface of the cornea? Yan. Okay, very good. Okay, that's a stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinizing. So, however, do not be misguided when you will be examining this slide on your own later, because majority of the portions of the stratified squamous epithelium covering the cornea is eroded already. So, however, ideally, it should be composed, the covering of the cornea should be composed of stratified squamous epithelium. And then the thickest layer composing the cornea, which is composed of dense regular connective tissue. As you can see, the fibroblasts are arranged parallel with each other in linear configuration. How will you call this thick portion of the cornea?
Corneal stroma.
The stroma, okay? And then, the stratified squamous epithelium is resting on a basement membrane, which is specifically called by what name?
Bowman's.
The Bowman's membrane. And then, opposite the stratified squamous epithelium is that epithelium, which is detached already. Which is composed actually of what type of epithelium? Single layer of
squamous.
So that it should be called as?
Corneal.
Which is composed of?
Simple squamous.
Okay, simple squamous epithelium. Okay? And then that basement membrane is specifically called the Decimex membrane. So opposite Bowman's membrane, and then in between
Stroma.
stroma. Very good. So we have already characterized the lens and then the cornea. And then in between the lens and the cornea is the part of the eye which will give the pigmentation to the eye. Iris. Now, what pigment is present in the iris? Melanin. So those granules, which are actually golden brown in color, they are the melanin pigments. So they are present in great number in our iris. So the degree of pigmentation or the amount of melanin pigment will determine the color of our eyes. So majority of us Asians, black in color or brown because of the high content of melanin of the iris. Yung mga Caucasians naman, blue or green, kasi konti lang ang melanin pigments. And then have you seen albinos already?
Yes.
So white ang skin nila because of the absence of melanin pigments, and then the color of their eyes is usually red. Red ang color ng kanilang eyes kasi walang pigment sa sa iris. So that mga blood vessels in the eyeball will impart the color to their eyes. Look at albino rabbits.
Yeah.
Pula ang color ng mata nila.
Twilight.
Okay, that's the lens. And then the iris is attached to this Structure
body.
is called the ciliary body. And then protruding at the surface of the ciliary body are these melanin pigment line irregularly shaped structures which are responsible for producing aqueous humor. How do you call these projections?
Ciliary process.
Okay, ciliary processes. And then the entire thing is the ciliary body. Now, at the site also of insertion of the iris to the ciliary body is the junction between the cornea anteriorly and the sclera posteriorly. What is the specific name of these junctions? The
Corneoscleral limbus.
Okay, the corneoscleral junction or the limbus. Now, there is a space in the limbus, that pointed portion, that is actually a canal.
Ayun.
Okay, what is the significance of that canal? Okay, it is called the canal of Schlemm. It drains what fluid? Okay, excess aqueous humor. Have you heard of the disease called glaucoma?
Yes.
What happens to the eyes in glaucoma?
Increase aqueous
Increase
humor.
intraocular pressure because of excessive accumulation of aqueous humor in those pointed portions of the eyeball because of the obstruction of the canal of Schlemm. Now, the aqueous humor is present in the spaces which are separated from each other by the iris. How do you call that space?
Anterior chamber. Ay, hindi.
Because it is located posterior to the iris.
Posterior chamber.
And then that one, which is bounded anteriorly by the cornea and then posteriorly by the iris, anterior chamber. Now, the iris is actually like a hollow circle. There is a hole at the middle. So that should serve as the superior margin of the hole and then the inferior margin of the hole. How will you call the opening in the iris? The pupil. Good. So, and then the lens is kept in place by those fibers which are called
Zonular fibers.
okay, the zonular lentes or the lens fibers. Let us go to the back portion of the eye.
Lenses.
Okay? Itong pinaka-representative na portion. Wherein, we can still see the attachment of the three layers of the eyeball with each other. The outermost layer, the sclera. And then the middle layer,
Choroid.
choroid. Choroid is actually, okay, so kasali sa choroid ang ciliary body, ciliary process, iris, and then the last component of the choroid, the uvea. Okay? Now the uvea, the sclera, can be easily identified because of its dark color because it is composed of what type of connective tissue? Dense.
Connective.
Kung kanina, yung cornea, dense regular, what can you say about the direction? Irregular. Okay? And then, interior to the sclera is the uvea. We will be able to say for sure that the pointed portion is the uvea because it is in between the sclera and the retina inside. Aside from that, the uvea is a component of the choroid. Tawag yan? Choroid. And then, almost all tissues composing the choroid will possess the pigments pointed, which are called melanin pigments. What is the significance of the presence of melanin in the uvea?
Brown.
Okay. Para hindi mag-reflect ang light na pumasok sa loob ng eyeball. Nag-absorb ng light ang melanin pigments in the uvea. Now, the uvea has two characteristic components. One, melanin pigments, and then the other component, the blood vessels. Okay? Because the sclera, as you can notice, does not possess any blood vessel. And then the innermost layer, how will you call the innermost layer of the eyeball?
Retina.
The retina also is avascular ng blood vessel. So that the nutrients for these tissues and the oxygen are acquired from diffusion from the blood vessels in the uvea. And then what will separate the uvea from the retina is that line, which is actually composed of simple columnar epithelium. And because the epithelium is colored with melanin pigment, what is the specific name of that epithelium? Okay, because it is colored with melanin
Retinal
pigment, it is called
pigment, RPE.
the pigmented epithelium. Okay, separating the retina from the outer uvea. Now, let us study now the histology of the retina. What are the three types of cells that can be seen in the retina? Bipolar neurons, what else?
Photoreceptors.
Ganglion cells, and the photoreceptor cells, which are the rod cells and
Cones.
the cone cells. Now, what we will be able to see here will only be the nucleus or the nuclei of the three types of cells mentioned. Okay? Immediately, at the vicinity of the pigmented epithelium are those nuclei. There are those cells which are actually the photoreceptor cells, the rod cells, and the cone cells. Have you discussed the physiology of vision?
Yes.
Okay? So, kunyari, nandito yung lens. Okay? The function of the lens is to focus the light that has entered the eyeball. So, that pagdating dito sa retina,